All right, let's try and get this conversation going now. Electricity Minister Dr Kgosientsho Ramokgopa says South Africa remains on course with its energy recovery plan. This is despite Eskom implementing stage 6 load shedding on Sunday morning following multiple trips at the Camden power station. The minister joining us now via the virtual platform. Minister, good evening to you and thank you very much for your time. You have touched on the technicalities during that media briefing at 11 today. And to sum up, I'm going to try and sum up what you said. And it simply is this in one line, that maintenance of power station or power stations is the reason the country is experiencing load shedding stage 6. But here's the question I have for you, Minister. Back in the day when we were in the grips of serious load shedding, there was what was called the unplanned capacity loss factor. I'd like for you to explain to us this evening what that is and what is it meant to signify.
Well, thank you, Collie. Good evening to you and good evening to the viewers. Thank you very much for the invitation. Let me start by expressing my most profuse apology to the people of South Africa for the current bout of load shedding. We understand their anger, we feel their pain, and I do understand this because we're really on the good path. Just to the point that you have made, yes. So I make 2 points. The first one is that we have been using a template, and that template is the energy recovery plan. And Eskom generated the response on how we're going to address the issues of load shedding. And central to that is that we need to invest capital to ensure that we are able to refurbish the fleet of units that is sitting with Eskom. And it is against that backdrop that we then approach National Treasury for support, because the Eskom balance sheet has been weakened and in fact their liquidity position compromised. So Eskom was not sitting with the necessary capital to make the investments that are required for us to improve the performance of these plants. And then we said once we receive that 254 billion rand injection that comes in installments from National Treasury's got its own conditions, and tied to those conditions is issues around performance. We then chose 6 stations out of the fleet of 14. That accounts for 70% of the unplanned capacity loss factor, the point we're making. So the unplanned capacity loss factor simply means that the generating units at these power stations keep on failing on their own. And that's as a result of poor maintenance, lack of maintenance, and also the kind of, if you like, workmanship that does not meet the requirements that are expected of people in the industry.
Yeah.
So we isolated those power stations and said we needed to invest a lot of resources in the form of money and also expertise. And to the extent that we didn't have the in-house expertise, we were able to draw from people from outside. And the kind of performance that we are seeing now, prior to this bout of load shedding, the 300 days plus of uninterrupted supply of electricity, is on the back of that intervention.
Yeah.
And then there's also a set of maintenance that we are doing. This is planned maintenance. So we can foresee that this unit has been running for a considerable period of time. And in terms of its maintenance philosophy, so the original equipment manufacturer would have said this unit can run for X number of hours. And after those hours, you really need to take it in for checkup like you do with your car. And we had abandoned that philosophy maintenance. So what the team did was that we then sequenced how we are going to take these units into maintenance. But we also accepted that if we are not going to move fast enough, these units will be at risk and they are going to continue to fail on their own. Essentially add on that unplanned capacity loss factor. And then we decided that we, on the back of the resources that we have, from the money point of view, the skills point of view, and the availability of equipment, that we are going to be aggressive in resolving this problem. So we are going to take this short-term pain, and once we are coming out the other side of maintenance, the country is going to see the kind of results that we have been seeing. We maintained that for a wide period of 16 months, And we still do that as I speak to you now.
Yeah.
And then there are inherent risks in this strategy that we have taken. What are the inherent risks? The inherent risk is that as you go on this aggressive maintenance, the risk is that if there's an outlier, an occurrence of, if you like, a cluster of units failing on their own, you then have sufficient headroom for you to be able to maneuver, because you have exhausted or the headroom is limited because you have taken unit out for planned maintenance. And we thought that's a risk that they were prepared to take. Because if we don't take that risk, the opposite is also true. If you don't do this maintenance, you are guaranteed that sometime in the future, at a time that you have not planned, these units are going to go out. In the same manner that your car performs, you can delay maintenance. That after 10,000 kilometers, take it in for fixing, decide, no, the car is running okay, why should I take it in? When it breaks, it's likely going to be more costly, it's going to take more time for you to fix, cause great inconvenience. Yeah. And we chose this path. And of course, that risk materialized. That risk materialized on Saturday, when we lost 5 units at Majuba, taking out 3,000 megawatts. Yeah. And it also triggered the domino effect, unit number 2 in Medupi. It took out 800 megawatts. And that's how we initiated stage 3 load shedding. And as we're looking at that stage 3 load shedding, 1 a.m. this morning, we lost the 4 units at Camden. But I want to make this point, an important point, I know I've been long-winded, is that the Majuba and the Camden failures are not on the main units themselves. So they are on auxiliary plant, the remainder of plant. Essentially, is the infrastructure that they share as the units in those particular power station that has failed. We've been able to get to the bottom of the root cause. And as I speak to you, 3 of the units at Majuba that failed yesterday, they are now back online. Yeah. 1 that failed in Camden is back online. And unit number 2 at Medupi that failed yesterday is also back online. And that's why we say that we will at the right time revise the load shedding stages downward. And I want to say to the country that by the end of the week, we'll be out of this episode. And I'm confident that we are going to have an excellent run of no load shedding until we get to a point where I get to say to the country that load shedding is behind us. But we remain on course, Colin.
All right. Minister, I don't want us to get stuck in the technicalities because we're going to lose viewers. So yeah. If I were to sum up the UCLF, the unplanned capacity loss factor, basically it is the unpredictability of plant performance. On a score, on a measurement of 1 to 10, where are we with all of these Eskom power stations?
Maybe let me give you an aggregate because they are at relative levels of performance. When load shedding was at its intensity when I was appointed, so I'm talking about 2023, I think that's when I was appointed, or 2020, 2024. The unplanned capacity loss factor was sitting, averaging 18,000 megawatts. So it means at any given time, out of the fleet of installed units, we had lost 18,000 megawatts was not available to us. Mm-hmm. And now what has been the average performance? The average performance were at about 12,000 megawatts. And in fact, on good weeks, we go up to 8,500 megawatts. So it means that we moved from 18,000 megawatts to 12,000 megawatts. We've made an improvement of 6,000 megawatts available capacity. So from that, which was not available before, now we've got an additional 6,000 megawatts. And that's why you have seen the kind of performance that we've been seeing. And like I say, I mean, we had periods where consistently we're registering about below 10,000 megawatts. Essentially, we have brought back into the fold 8,000 megawatts. So that's what it is in aggregate terms. And of course, now as I speak to you, we've been able to claw back. When we lost that, the Majuba units, the Camden units, the Medupi units, again, we went back to those levels that we had experienced before of 18,000 megawatts. But now, as I'm speaking to you with the latest update, since we did the media briefing, we got back 3,500 megawatts. We are sitting at 14,000 megawatts. and our reserves are looking good. The dam levels are about 78%. Ankerleg, which is our peaking plant using diesel, we're at 28%, and that's what we want to recover. So this time of the next question you have to ask me now, if there's that improvement, why not revising it down immediately? It's because we want to ensure that the levels of the reserves at Ankerleg, they are above 60%, as you know, that we are delivering the diesel by road. So those trucks, as they deliver the diesel, we get to comfortable levels. We'll do the assessment now at 8 and then determine what is the stage you are going to revise down to. But the comfort I want to give is that with the units that are coming, I just learned that the Duva units are coming back, the Tutuka units. Now, as I speak to you just before I join you, they are also on load. So it's another 1,000 megawatts additional. So it brings back down the unplanned capacity loss factor to close to 13,000. So we're at levels that we had experienced, but we want to ensure that there's significant buffer from our reserve margins. And that's why we have said with a degree of confidence, come towards the end of the week, we'll be out of this bout. And I want to give the country an assurance that we're doing our best to ensure that we resolve this load shedding. It's finally behind us. Yeah. But I must emphasize that we have to do this maintenance because next time I don't want to have a conversation with you, colleague, when in fact the system has collapsed and you ask me a different question. But Ramokgopa, you and the Eskom, you didn't anticipate that this would happen. Why isn't that you have taken the units out for maintenance? I'm comfortable with, I'm okay to have this conversation, irrespective of their degree of discomfort, because there's a lot of people who can't watch us now because they are doing load share. But I'm just saying it is that the pain that we are paying. I am confident that we'll go back to the levels that we've seen when we had 300 days of no load shedding. And in fact, we'll cease to count the number of days because we must establish what should ordinary.
Oh my goodness. I think the minister may have been load shedded. I'm going to hear from the team as to whether or not he is still load shedded. All right, he is back. All right, Minister, I'm told that...
there are no exceptions.
I'm told you're back.
I think that's...
I'm told you're back, which is good, And I take what you're saying, that there are no exceptions, meaning that you also get load shedded. I think South Africans, those at least that are able to watch us, take comfort in that you also experience the very same as the rest of South Africa. But let's wind this down, Minister. I want you to tell us, in a way, almost predicting when we can see the back of load shedding. And I'm going to use a specific timeline. So keep in mind the December 2027 date at the back of your mind. And I predict that you probably know what I'm referring to. It's the ANC conference. And that ANC conference elects new leaders. If you were to campaign for president of the ANC and you want to use load shedding as an example of how well you did in turning around a situation that essentially was an albatross around the country's neck, how soon would you want to end load shedding between now and December of 2027?
Well, if I was driven by political ambitions, I would have made it possible that when we went to the national and provincial elections, would have ended load shedding much earlier. And I always make the point, I think it's not a political expedient intervention, and it's not meant to bolster someone's ambitions. I think we need to save the South African economy. We need to make sure that the people are back into employment. I was asked a question today, aren't you embarrassed that there's load shedding in G20? I make the point that the South African people comes first. G20 is just a coincidence. It's to make sure that the kids are able to go to school, study, they have access to electricity, are able to do their homeworks, businesses are able to operate in the townships and large industries. That's our primary preoccupation. Let me tell you something. If we're expedient, I'll be reckless. We will be reckless there and say, like now as I speak to you, I just told you that the units have come back. So I could take this opportunity and announce that they were ending load shedding. But that's not the right way of doing it. I've just told you that the recovery rate is consistent with what you have expected, that now we're close below even 14,000. And therefore, we shouldn't be at stage 6. But we need to take account now stock. We're going to meet at 8, the teams, and see what is in the best interest of the South African economy. We will not be reckless. We will not pursue any selfish ambitions at the expense of the grid and the South African people. And then to your question, and I have not, I've been tempted to be asked to say, but give us a date. I would say I will not give that date because I did say that allow us to do this plan maintenance. We are going to synchronize unit number 6. It's a new additional capacity, new capacity that's coming on stream now on the 9th of March.
Yeah.
We are bringing back unit number 4 at Middle, which has been out for 4 years in March. When those units are back and we stabilize this planned maintenance, we are at the peak of this planned maintenance. We just need to go the other side. So at the point of inflection, I will come and have a conversation with you and say, Coley, because of the following intervention, because of this additional capacity, because of the reliability of the unit, we have ended load shedding. It's a particularly attractive proposition for me to say that it will end tomorrow. No, I'll be lying to our people, but I want to leave them with this message. Load shedding is within touching distance. The ending of load shedding, rather, I'm sorry, is within touching distance.
Thank you very much for your time. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. Thank you very much for your time.